Excitement is beginning to build around Cowboys Nation and the NFL for the 2026 NFL Draft. The first time since 2008 that the Cowboys have multiple first-round picks, and with an emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, plenty of questions remain on how they'll attack it. Welcome in to our NFL Draft preview edition of Cowboys Spotlight. Alongside Mickey Spagnola and Nicole Hutchison, I'm Kyle Youmans. And really, guys, this is a crucial draft for the Dallas Cowboys. They've got to pick at 12. They've got to pick at 20. Then they do not pick again until day 3. Here's a look at what the Cowboys currently hold in the NFL Draft. This could move and shake, especially with comp picks, those compensation picks that the Cowboys will get at some point in the middle of March. But up until this point, they hold 6 picks, including those 2 in the first round. Mickey, when you look at the selections that the Cowboys are planning to make, where is the biggest area of need, on your opinion?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we have to factor in is what do they do in free agency, because that'll affect what happens in April. But obviously right now their needs are at linebacker, at cornerback, and at defensive end, and that about covers the defense, I think. But again, what happens in free agency? Because let me ask you one question. If they can't re-sign George Pickens, who's your number 2 wide receiver?
That's the biggest question that you have to find an answer for, right, Nicole?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to stick with the defensive side of the ball just because, Mickey, you made a great point of cornerback, safety. I'm sticking with DB as the biggest area of need. Hear me out, all right? -9 in turnover margin, 6 interceptions. That was tied for the second least in the NFL, and also 6.9% explosive play rate allowed. That was the 4th worst in the NFL. And to put into perspective, the Vikings had the lowest explosive play rate allowed, which was 3.7. So that secondary definitely needs some work.
No doubt about it, and there are plenty of areas to be addressed. Will McClay said it, even with the emphasis on the defensive side of the football, it doesn't change how the Cowboys are attacking this draft process.
We go through the full process like we do every year. Now we have the opportunity to potentially get 2 in the first round. So everybody's going to be digging, doing the work, knowing the importance that those 2 picks will have on us, not only next year, but in the years to come. So just digging and excited about doing that and getting an opportunity to see what we can do with it. You've always got to have depth. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to have depth. That team that we had last year, that team's not, we're not promised to have those guys back. So we're always looking to improve the offensive side. I know Schotty's got a vision. We've got some depth there. We've got some guys there, but you're never one player away, and something could happen to one, and you got to have another one. So that's why we're looking at the draft in totality on offense and defensive players.
Which, if you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys and you're a fan of the NFL Draft, that's a good thing to hear. That means you're not pigeonholing this Cowboys team into a certain spot or a certain selection. But now that we know where the positions of need are, do you feel like this NFL Draft, Nicole, is going to fit the Cowboys' need, especially in those first 20 picks?
It better. Let me say that, because this defensive end class, I think, is probably one of the most richest class. You have a lot of guys at the cornerback position as well that the Cowboys have a long picking list of from. So, yeah, I think that they need to hit on these first 2 rounds for sure, because they don't have a second, they don't have a third. So, yeah, you don't have a choice.
And you know what? Here's what the Cowboys need. If you start looking at all these mock drafts out there, I saw one, and 7 of the first 7 picks, or first 7 in the top 11, were offensive and defensive ends. Now, here's what they need. They need a quarterback to jump up into that top 10 or 11. They need a running back to jump up into that top 10 or 11, push guys back to them so they can get one of the top 2 cornerbacks or one of the top 2 or 3 defensive ends.
I like the way you think, Mickey. That's a great way to do it. And, of course, Cowboys going to be looking toward the defensive side of the ball as we welcome in Patrik Walker from DallasCowboys.com. Patrik, are these Cowboys really forced on using those first 2-round picks, or the 2 picks in the first round, I should say, on the defensive side of the ball? Are they pigeonholed there?
I don't think that they're pigeonholed there, Kyle. I think Mickey makes a great point. First and foremost, foremost, we have to see what the Cowboys will or will not do in free agency. That's going to dictate any type of pressure that they may or may not feel when April rolls around for the draft. But then when you look at the offensive side of the ball, there's a wealth of an embarrassment of riches, if you will, at the wide receiver position. I believe they'll retain George Pickens by hook or by crook. You got a wealth of talent at running back. You know who your quarterback is. Your tight ends room for the most part is set. Offensive line, though, got some questions there on your ends, left and right tackle. What do you do there? But I don't think any of that overshadows what needs to happen with a full rebuild on defense. I think that this is a defensive-heavy draft for the Cowboys. I think that applies to both 12 and 20 for their overall picks because they have to get the personnel in here for Christian Parker, your new defensive coordinator.
So, Patrik, having said that, how much do you think head coach Brian Schottenheimer and Christian Parker will affect what they do with those first 2 picks?
I think the Schottenheimer era, as we enter year 2 of that, it's already shown us that he has a lot of input on what's going on within this organization. And Christian Parker, that hire tells you, even the candidacy, 9 candidates before the Schottenheimer and the Cowboys landed on Christian Parker as that guy. I think they're going to give Christian Parker the same carte blanche, for lack of a better way to put it, as Dan Quinn when he came into the organization. Prior to the Dan Quinn era, you saw the Cowboys a little bit reticent at safety, defensive tackle, but here came Dan Quinn, and then they put some more pressure on improving in those positions. And then here came Matt Eberflus, but under Matt Eberflus was Aaron Whitecotton, a Schottenheimer guy. What did he do? He helped facilitate the addition of Kenny Clark via trade with Micah Parsons, and of course Quinnen Williams, a blockbuster trade at the trade deadline. So I think when you're going into the draft, free agency as well, Mickey, I think Schottenheimer and Parker together, they're going to have most of the say as far as what happens in the draft.
Big Money Pat, I want to talk about what Will McClay had mentioned, and he used the word depth, right? Well, the linebacker room was probably one of the deepest that the Cowboys had last season, but there were some injuries, of course, and, a lot of other things there that happened as well. But I want to talk about the linebacker position. How much of the sense of urgency should the Cowboys have in addressing that position?
They've got to have a lot of urgency there, Nicole. I mean, bottom line, like you said, there was a time not so long ago where you felt great about the linebacker core, not so much going into 2026. You love the fact that DeMarvion Overshown is back in the picture, but availability has to be his crux going forward. So TBD on that. Ability, no doubt. He's one of the best playmakers on your team. He just has to stay on the field. Maris Leofau flew out of the gate with his first year. Second year, he was kind of pulled back. What do you have there? And now you have Shamar James, still a rookie coming out of last season. A lot of growing pains, high potential. But as a whole, you don't know what you have there, so you're still going to have to address that, I think, in both free agency and the draft.
Thank you very much, Pat. Appreciate you as always. And when we come back on Cowboys Spotlight, we turn back the clock a little bit to see who stood out in Mobile, Alabama as a part of the 2026 Panini Senior Bowl as our NFL Draft preview rolls on from the Star in Frisco.
The Dallas Cowboys Spotlight is presented by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. And by the Texas Lottery. Play the games of Texas with the Texas Lottery. Play today.
From the home of the original Mardi Gras, Mobile, Alabama, it's the site of the 2026 Panini Senior Bowl as the Dallas Cowboys and the entire NFL converges on the 2026 NFL Draft. Alongside Tommy Yarish, I'm Kyle Youmans. So glad you're with us, and we get an opportunity here to kind of break down what the NFL Draft looks like in the early stages. Still a long way to go until the NFL Draft, but this is an event every year that brings out the best in some of these young prospects. Do you feel like this year lived up to the expectation with the prospects we saw on the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's always a good crop of prospects here. Not necessarily all day one, early round guys, but you're going to find a lot of day two guys, day three guys that you can maybe steal later in the fourth, fifth, or sixth round. But the middle of that crop, we've talked a lot about the middle of this draft, seems like it's where the most depth is, and I think that's been reflected in what we've seen so far at the Senior Bowl.
Now, one of the big things about this is it's a lot of day two, day three guys having an opportunity to raise their draft stock. Were there any names throughout the week that stood out to you you as somebody that's making a little bit of money out here in Mobile.
Yeah, I think so. One guy that maybe sneak into day one and probably will is TJ Parker, the edge rusher from Clemson. I know there were questions about, okay, is the production this past year from some of these Clemson guys going to be able to maybe hurt their draft stock? He's having a really good week out here. His long arm is so good, so technically sound as a rusher. I think he's having a great time. Chris Johnson, the corner from San Diego State, I think has put together some good reps. It's been a lot of up and down from these cornerbacks, but I thought Chris Johnson from San Diego State, a guy who probably will go on day 2 in that 3rd or 4th round maybe, is probably going to shift his stock a little bit higher after what he's put out here. Those are just 2 of the names that come to mind for me, but really so many players that have stood out. And again, with some of these corners and wide receivers and even in one-on-ones, it's really hard to tell, but when they make splash plays, you certainly remember them.
I certainly think Josh Cameron needs to be mentioned on that list. The wide receiver from Baylor showed up not even with his own helmet, and he still was able to play in day 1, continue that into day 2 and day 3 as well as a standout wideout who wears number 34. A little bit odd in terms of the look. He looks like a running back too. 223 pounds is what he measured out at here in Mobile, but somebody to keep an eye on maybe in the later rounds if Dallas is looking for an extra weapon. Now, he goes to Baylor, but there's been some Texas schools showing out as well. Any schools stand out? And I have a feeling I know what your answer is before you even say it.
Yeah, these Texas Tech guys are having a really good week. Jacob Rodriguez, the Wichita Falls product, had 2 forced fumbles and an interception today. He's been a turnover machine all year for Texas Tech. He was that this time on the field today. And then Lee Hunter, the big defensive tackle, wrecking shop at the line of scrimmage. If he's left one-on-one, he's going to be really hard to block, and that was on full display.
I think you really look at all of those Texas Tech guys, and there's a reason why it was the number 1 defense in the nation and a team that ended up in the college football playoff all the way to the Orange Bowl. So Texas Tech showing out. We've mentioned a couple of names. Let's take a look at your early mock draft. Remember, it's early. Still a long way to go until April in the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. Who are some of the names that stand out to you?
Yeah, I kind of emphasize again, very early, but at the top, I think it's pretty easy for the number 1 overall pick. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana. Just makes a lot of sense for the Raiders and what they need. I've got Ohio State's Arvell Reese, the talented linebacker, going to the Jets. They could just use an all-around defensive weapon. I think he is that. Francis Malinoa from Miami, the tackle, going to the Cardinals at 3. I think he's the best offensive lineman in this draft. Ruben Bain goes to the Titans at 4. The defensive end from Miami had an incredible close to the year. Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State, starts a back-to-back run on wide receivers going to the Giants. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, the receiver to the Browns. And then David Bailey, a guy who I think is probably the best edge rusher in this class, but I think a lot of people like Bain more than they like Bailey. Yeah. I've got him going to the Commanders at 7. That would not be fun for the Dallas Cowboys. Peter Woods at 8, the defensive tackle from Clemson, going to the Saints. Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, to the Chiefs. And then Caleb Downs, a guy that I know a lot of Cowboys fans want, the safety from Ohio State. Doesn't get to him.
He goes doesn't 10. Make it all the way to 12.
He goes 10 to the Bengals. Jermod McCoy, the super talented corner. A lot of questions about his injury, but really good corner out of Tennessee, goes to the Dolphins. Then at 12 for the Cowboys, I think Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, makes a ton of sense for what they're looking for. At 20, here's a new name that you probably haven't seen in very many mock drafts. Brandon Cisse, the corner from South Carolina. I think he would be perfect for the Cowboys at 20 if some of these cornerbacks are off the board. Long-armed, taller guy who can run, play press man-to-man coverage. I think that's the guy that Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator, would really like.
No doubt about it, and I think that would be a haul for Dallas fans that would be excited about, because you get a linebacker in Styles that could anchor the middle of your defense for quite some time, does a little bit of everything for that second level, and then you got Brandon Cisse, who does a little bit of everything for the secondary as well. We've got more draft coverage coming your way on DallasCowboys.com throughout the offseason. Again, for Tommy Yarish and myself, Kyle Youmans, we are here from the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, but when we come back, we're going to check in with the Shrine Bowl that happened in the backyard of the Dallas Cowboys at the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco.
Well, the winter storm took over the DFW, leaving snow all over Dallas, Texas, but it didn't stop the party here at the Star and the Ford Center. Welcome back into Spotlight. Nicole Hutchison, Mickey Spagnola, and the East-West Shrine Bowl is officially in the books. A lot of players getting a chance to show their position skills, their position flex. Mickey, I've got to ask you, were there any guys that stood out to you the most?
Well, I hate to be obvious, man, right? But defensive end Mason Rieger, out of Wisconsin. I thought he stole the show. I was specifically looking at positions that I knew the Cowboys would need in this draft. Now, I don't know that he's a first day or second day defensive end, but I thought that there was good reason why he was the defensive MVP in the Shrine game. Ended up with three sacks, excuse me. One was a strip fumble, and he also played the run well.
Yeah.
And to me, I value that as a defensive end. You can't just be chasing sacks. You got to be able to set the run, set the edge, right? And I thought he did that too with 4 tackles. So to me, that was the first guy that made an impression for me.
Yeah, you talk about Mason Rieger, defensive end out of Wisconsin, 6'4", 243, and you mentioned that strip fumble. The way that he was able to burst off the line of scrimmage, right, get some bend there, stay underneath, and that relentless motor is what really stood out, and the scouts, per reports, really loved about him as well.
Well, the other thing that I saw about him going into the Shrine game was that he was probably a third-day draft choice.
Yeah.
Well, if he's a third-day draft choice, then it's the 4th round after that performance.
Absolutely. There's another guy I want to mention is Cole Wisniewski, a defensive back out of Texas Tech. Were there anything that stood out to you about him?
Well, he was always around the ball.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, one time he and the ball didn't get along too well. But other than that, yeah, I thought he stood out. You knew his name, right? And then the other guy that I had written down was Wesley Williams, another defensive end. He was in the backfield. He was causing problems. He had a really good get-off. Now, I'm not saying any of these guys are one of the Cowboys' first 2 first-round picks,
Absolutely.
right? But second day, early third day, I think these guys improved their draft status.
Yeah, and a good thing to mention is that there were over 150 players that came in that were supposed to participate in the Shrine Bowl. Well, 54 actually departed the day before the game that did not participate in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those guys. But there's a lot of guys that the Cowboys could possibly maybe get, like you mentioned, day 2, day 3, maybe undrafted free agency. Was there anyone else that stood out to you?
Well, let me give you one example of what happened the year before. I was sitting at AT&T Stadium watching this, and I saw this running back I never heard of, right? His name was, and I make sure I get it right, Ja'Cory Koski Merritt. And I go, where'd this guy come from? And he came from Arizona, had only played 1 game because of eligibility problems, and he ended up being the offensive MVP. Got drafted by the Commanders in the 7th round and ended up leading them in rushing with 805 yards and this year, and led all rookie running backs with 8 touchdowns. So you never know when one of these guys come out of nowhere and step up in this game and then make a name for themselves in the NFL.
You heard it here on the Spotlight. Anything is possible for any of these players. It was the 101st year that they have done this game, and the 101st, Lunda Wells gets a win as the head coach of the West team. Look at him getting his Gatorade showers. Congratulations to Coach Lunda Wells. We've got more on Spotlight coming up next.
The Dallas Cowboys Spotlight was presented by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. And by the Texas Lottery. Play the games of Texas with the Texas Lottery. Play today.
Wesley Bassant, linebacker from the national runner-up Miami Hurricanes.
Garrett Nussmeyer, quarterback at LSU.
Iowa linebacker Carson Shire.
Tanner Colesville, tight end from the University of Houston. I'm going to take you guys through my favorite play from this season.
You'll draw the route like this, but rarely does it ever truly look like that. If it's zone, I like to look around and find spaces in the zone and sit. If it's man, depending on if it's 2 man, 1 man, or what we're getting, the leverage I'm getting, I'm gonna manipulate the route in different ways to be on the same page with my quarterback and just be in an advantageous position from the defender.
3rd and 8, and we call it solo. So we're cover 1. On the snap, the running back came out to chip the end. So technically I had the running back, but as soon as I saw him chip the end and I saw Pavia step up, I just saw the gap, shot it, and popping. And it was fun play.
We got a slot fade right here, my man answer. And we got crosser, dig, swing, finisher, your typical Y cross and air raid system. This is my favorite play from 2024. We had Aaron Anderson here running the cross. They brought some pressure. Drifted left, hit him over the middle for a touchdown on 4th and 6 to force overtime.
This player right here, he's dropping. He's dropping out to the flat. And this tackle is gonna loop to contain. So I'm reading the center. If the center comes towards me, I'll wrap around to the opposite B gap. If the center goes right away, which he did, I have a free lane, and what we wanted was to get the one-on-one with the running back. So the running back stepped up, I blew him up, and I was able to get the sack on the quarterback, and that's how the play happened.
You were a key part of that defense. Congratulations on all the success that you've had throughout your career, and good luck at the next level.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.
How cool is that, getting to dive into the football IQ of some of these NFL draft prospects? As we welcome you back into Cowboys Spotlight with Mickey Spagnola and Nicole Hutchison. I'm Kyle Youmans, and we've now gotten the chance to see a lot of these guys hit the field for one last time in the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. But Mickey, the Cowboys with 2 first-round picks, how are they going to spend them come April?
I don't know if I'm smart enough at the beginning of February to tell you who exactly they're going to pick. But in my opinion, there's a guy out there. He's my dream pick. I saw him play early in the college season. I went to Will McClay and I said, is Ruben Bain at Miami for real, the defensive end? And Will goes, he is, but he'll never make it to us.
That's unfortunate, but I like that you have a dream. Now, you have a dream scenario, too, with your first-round mock draft.
Listen, Mickey can dream, I can dream, too, right? The Cowboys are going to go with, hear me out, safety Caleb Downs, okay, out of Ohio State. Number 20, they're going to go with Zion Young. I know he's excited about that one as well. But Caleb, I love it. He's a do-it-all safety. You don't know what they're going to do with Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson as well. I feel like he brings that difference type of maker to this defense, or at least he could, so to speak. He's got the comparisons of Kyle Hamilton out of the Ravens and Derwin James for the Chargers. So, could the Cowboys go to safety? I think so.
I would love to add one of those guys to our defense. And, Mickey, that would be the first safety taken by the Cowboys since Donovan Wilson back in 2019. It's been a long time since they've drafted a safety, period, in this NFL draft.
Well, and in the first round, only once in their history, Roy Williams.
Yeah, and here's my first-round mock draft as well. I'm going to go secondary early as well. Mansour Delane out of LSU. That's going to be my number 1 pick at 12. Then at 20, you got to get some pass rush. T.J. Parker, who was at the Senior Bowl, really stood out. I think he pass rushes with a plan, and he's got some strength that you don't have on your defensive line. Give me T.J. Parker to combine with some secondary skill as well for the Cowboys on the defensive side of the football. That does it for us here on our Cowboys Spotlight NFL Draft Preview. Enjoy the draft process, everybody.